All right, the first thing I wanted to talk to you all about is your essay, right? Draft number 2 is due Wednesday of this week. All right, try to get that uploaded by 1 o'clock. All right, and just a couple things about your rough drafts before I go into too much detail about it. But just make sure your next draft, draft number 2, is 4 pages or as close to 4 pages as you can get it. When it's all said and done, the final draft has to be 4 pages. And the goal is for you all not to have much work to do between your second and third draft. So the draft, the first draft, or excuse me, going from your first draft to your second draft, that's when you're going to be putting a lot of the work in. But ideally, going from your second to your final draft would just be about you polishing what you already have. So try to make this draft as close to your 4 page draft as possible, if not, the full 4 pages. All right. Nobody has to start from scratch. So you're basically or you're essentially adding to what you already have. So don't, when I say like draft number 2, don't think that it's an entirely new essay. All right. It's just you're just improving on what you have. All right. Also, and this is important as well, when you do your revisions, right? Make sure you do them on your original copy. Meaning, like in your assignment folder, you have your draft, and then you already have, or excuse me, you have a draft that I have uploaded as well. Make sure you're making your revisions on your own original draft. Meaning, like, don't give me back the draft with my with my comments already on there. All right, now I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me just switch over this to you real quick. All right, give me 1 second. Just upload something into this assignment folder. I'm just gonna put anything in here, any old file. Okay, there we go. All right. So when I say use your own draft, just go back into the assignment folder. Just click on it. All right, that's not how you do it. I don't know what you guys do as students. All right. You want to click on your submissions. This is how you get to it. All right. So you click on that, and then you'll see your draft, and then you'll see your original. You'll see the draft of my feedback, and the draft with my feedback is pretty much it's. I think I titled them all your first name, and then just draft next to them. But you can look at that as a model and definitely go over the feedback. But when you're doing your own draft, make sure you do it on your original. Don't use the same. Don't use the one with my comments and stuff on there. All right, because you're gonna get a new draft back with some additional comments. All right. So again, make sure this next draft is 4 pages or as close to 4 pages as you can get, and then make sure it's done on your original copy. All right, and then and this is something I commented on for a few essays. Make sure you're getting the format right. All right, and that's just something that we'll continue to practice as we go through this semester. But make sure you're MLA heading, right? Name, instructor name, class, and date to the left, and then last name, page number to the right. All right, and then make sure you double space properly. Okay. So now, my fine students. Okay, let's look in this week's module. All right. And hopefully you all got to look at some of the material from last week's module where there were just reading questions. Oh yeah, paragraphing strategies. All right. Want to say a little bit more about that. Okay. You put your paragraphs together. Because we talked a little bit about sentences, all right, and what makes a complete sentence. But I think now we should talk a little bit about paragraphs. So let's look at this. Actually, no. All right. And if you viewed the lecture that I uploaded last week, um, it's really just going over this material, developing paragraphs. All right. And I think, as you all are revising your essays, and definitely as you're adding more to your essays, and as we're getting closer, not quite there yet, but as we're getting closer to the final draft, I think it's time for us to start paying special attention to the structure of our paragraphs. And one of the benchmarks that we should be meeting, or you should be meeting, when you get out of this class is, just writing just nice, digestible paragraphs for your audience. In fact, if by the end of the semester, if you're still, or if you're writing like in page length paragraphs, you are likely to be held back in this class, and that's just as honest as I can as I can keep it. So if you had some issues breaking down paragraphs on your first essay, or excuse me, on your first draft, it's fine. It just lets us know it's a skill that we have to keep practicing. But well, I'll get to it when I go over it. So I think one of the main things, and this is something I said, when I was recording the lecture for last week, one of the things that we should try to get out of our minds is just aiming for a predetermined length, when we put our paragraphs together. All right. Sometimes it's like 3 to 5 sentences, 7 to 10 sentences, 6 sentences, whatever, or 6 to 8 sentences, whatever. And all those are good rules, to live by, or to write by. But I think it's more effective for us as writers and as students to start thinking about our paragraphs in terms of their characteristics instead of um, a specific amount of sentences. And when I say think of them in terms of their characteristics, the characteristics you're thinking of are unity, coherence, and development. Unity, coherence, and development. All right. And I went over those, those qualities in last week's lecture, but I wanted to just reiterate, a few of those things, especially as you guys are putting your next draft together. Paragraphing is going to be critical. And again, it's one of those skills that hopefully you're developing as you progress through this class. All right. So unity, coherence, and development. Unity just means that everything in a particular paragraph is organized around one idea. Or if you're telling a story or sharing an experience, as you all are doing in your essay, you don't have any like distracting sentences in your paragraphs, or you don't have any sentences that kind of go off on tangents. All right. And just to get away from our book just for a little bit here. And this is an example that I brought up, during the when I was recording the lecture for last week. All right. So if we look at this material, right, let's look at this paragraph. And this is one I went over during the lecture as well. When using a calendar to budget time, it is important to think about how long certain activities will take. Okay, so here's our topic sentence. And in a unified paragraph, everything in the paragraph has some connection to this sentence. So, however you begin a paragraph, whether you're, discussing, that time in sixth grade, when you got, when you were a victim of bullying, or whatever you're discussing. All right, keep that idea in mind as you put your paragraph together. And I think one of the most distracting things, or one of the most um, disruptive elements in a paragraph, in a narrative essay, are just kind of sentences that don't belong. All right, sentences that could be interesting but really don't fit, within the flow of the paragraph, and they can serve as distractions for your reader. All right, so when you're putting your body paragraphs together, as you revise, think about the main idea of that paragraph, and then try not to have any distracting sentences or sentences that kind of go off topic in that paragraph. So we know this paragraph is going to be about, budgeting your time. Okay, budgeting your time. So let's look, right? And I have each one of these sentences numbered. It just makes it easier to point out. You don't have to do that in your own paper, of course. A common mistake is to underestimate the time needed to do something, even something simple. So again, developing that idea. All right. For example, when planning the time needed to get cash from the ATM, all right. Remember, there may be a line of people. All right. So again, we're good up to this point. Last week in line, I met a woman I went to high school with, so we chatted. Uh-oh. It turns out she has two children the same age as mine. Now, we ran into an issue here. All right. Ran into an issue because, this may seem interesting or whatever, may seem like a personal connection that this person made, but if you look back at the entirety of this paragraph, these two students these two sentences don't fit. All right. Because they're just off topic. Great. You met a woman in line last week that you had a connection with, but it really doesn't fit, within, what this paragraph is discussing. But now, as you can see in, sentence number 6, he gets back on track. When estimating time for a more complex activity, such as reading a chapter in a textbook, block out more time than the activity requires. Doing so will provide additional free time if the task does not take as long as projected. One should allow for interruptions because it is better to allow too much time than too little. All right. So if we go back over this paragraph, sentences number 4 and number 5 don't really belong there. Okay. And again, in our minds, this may go, but if we really step back and look at our paper, which is what I want you all to do in the revision process, take a step back, look at your paper as a whole, and then look at it by paragraph. Okay, look at it by paragraph, and then check the unity. Right? Do you have any sentences in your paragraph that do not belong? Either because they're off topic and they're going to distract your reader, or maybe they just don't fit, within the overall point that this paragraph is making. All right. And if you have a sentence that doesn't belong in a paragraph, that's not to say that it doesn't belong, in the entire essay. It just, you can just put it in a separate paragraph. All right. So when you're working on your own papers, draft number 2, check the unity of your paragraphs. All right. Do I have sentences that don't belong? Or, do I have sentences that, could be interesting, but all right, just don't fit within the flow of this paragraph for whatever reason. All right. So now, okay. Let's look at this one, right? In the chat, okay? Read this to yourself and then in the chat, which sentence or sentences don't belong. All right. You can just answer in the chat. Six. Okay. All right. You seem to be pretty settled on number 6. Okay. What's up with number 6? Why don't we like that one?
I think it's like kind of like incomplete essentially.
All right.
And he go off the subject from what he was actually talking about.
Right. Because what's the subject?
Football.
Yeah. Okay. Now, and believe it or not, I see this in essays a lot, especially like early drafts of essays to where, a student is still kind of figuring it out. So, and this is what I meant when you all put your or when you're going back over your essays, the paragraphs that you do have, check to see if all of your sentences that you have in that particular paragraph make sense in that paragraph. And, if you do end up having to, remove something from a paragraph, either you can remove it. And like if we take this sentence out, if we take sentence number 6 out of this paragraph, it'll still make sense. All right. Or, you know, sometimes you can just replace it, replace that sentence, with another sentence that's more on topic. All right. But even on some of the drafts, I can't recall like which ones, but some of them I did put in certain paragraphs, where I highlighted something, this sentence seems out of place here. All right. So if you have that comment, think about either where you can move that sentence or what you can replace it with. But I think it's the bottom line is you need to get it out of that paragraph. All right. So again, paragraph unity, just means that, every sentence in your paragraph, serves that one, or it's geared towards one idea. Okay, don't put multiple ideas in a paragraph. When you start discussing a new idea, start a new paragraph. Or for you all, since you're writing personal narratives, when there's a change in action, or when there's a change in scenery, or when there's a new activity, or if there's the passage of time, start a new paragraph, for all those things. Also, if you want to just give your reader, a moment to pause and reflect. And this is what I was speaking about earlier when I was saying, try to avoid paragraphs that are like a page length, because well, look at it like this. Imagine being in a conversation with someone, right? And they just don't stop. All right. They're talking constantly. And it's like you don't have a moment to get a word in. All right. That's how those long paragraphs come off, sometimes, where it's just like a page length, or even, 2 pages worth of paragraph. Break it down. Okay. New idea, new paragraph. New location, meaning like you're in 8th grade, then you went to 9th grade. Start a new paragraph for that, right? If you're talking about a new phase in your life, start a new paragraph, right? Or again, if you're writing a paragraph about the same thing but it's running a little long, think about when you want your reader to just, take a moment to reflect, on what you're talking about. But whatever you're doing, when you're going back to revise your paragraphs, or even when you're writing new paragraphs, make sure that they're organized around one idea or one aspect of, the story or the experience, that you're sharing when you're putting your narrative together. All right, and then just to sorry for switching back and forth, but just to reinforce a little bit from our textbook here. All right, our textbook doesn't necessarily use the word unity, but again, it's the same principle, focusing on the main point. All right, focusing on the main point. And again, this paragraph is just all about the Mall of America, in Minnesota. All right. So yeah, keep that in mind. All right. Stick to the main point. And these are just some strategies. We'll go over more of these when, especially this one, comparing and contrasting, when we do our common essay. But for right now, our main strategy for developing a paragraph is going to be descriptive language and narration. And both of these just involve sharing experiences. This is like how some of you in your essays, and I think I pointed it out, there was some really good descriptive language. All right, but for some of you, if I noted on your essay that your paragraph was a bit underdeveloped, maybe you can describe the experience in a bit more detail. Meaning some of you wrote about some really I guess emotionally charged experiences, and that's fine, but give those experiences the attention they deserve. Like if you experienced I don't know, just some like trying time, where you were ill, right? Or a family member was ill, or something like that, or you just went through like a really intense experience. Really take some time to explore that. And that's how you're gonna change, or that's how you're gonna make your 2 pages into 4 pages, right? Just by adding that detail. And then I can tell also from some of the essays, there was just more to it. All right, some just got to 2 pages and stopped, which is cool. But now, even on some of the essays, I suggested like, hey, describe this a bit more or use a bit more detail here. And again, like I said, that's how you're going to get your essay, up to those 4 pages. Also, when you think about it from your reader's perspective, descriptive language is how you're going to get your reader invested, right? It's going to help them, see your experiences or feel, that feeling you felt. All right. And here's an example, in our textbook on the descriptive language. I'm not going to read it. All right. Same thing, right? When you're narrating, right? You're just telling the story. Okay. So think about that, when you're putting your essay together, right? One, you're definitely focused on unified paragraphs. Um, Go back over your work. Look for sentences that don't belong. Are all of the sentences in this paragraph moving in the same direction? So, and if the answer is no to that, take out the ones that don't. That distract your reader, from your experiences or from the experience that you're talking about. Okay, so that's unity, my good people. Okay, unity. It's none of this is easy, right? No aspect of the writing process is easy, but I would say paragraph unity is one of the characteristics that's the easiest to go back and check. Because to check a paragraph unity, all you got to do is check your topic sentence, or if the topic sentence is implied, just look at the main idea of this paragraph and see what sentences are out of place. All right, but paragraph coherence, that's something that you know people tend to struggle with as writers. All right. And I'm not just talking about 1060. My 1510 class is even my 1520 class is something that I offer, continual coaching about. And coherence, it's really just about the flow of your paragraphs and the connection between your ideas. All right. The connection between your ideas. And our book, gives us several strategies for increasing the coherence of our paragraphs. Okay. And our textbook, I like the way they put it. All right. Coherent paragraph coherence or coherent paragraphs make it easier for our readers to follow our train of thought. right? So if our thoughts are all over the place, then odds are, the writing is going to be all over the place, and our reader is not going to be able to discern, what we mean. All right. And when we think about that, we put all of this time and we put all of this effort into, putting our essays together, and we don't want, what we're saying to fall on deaf ears. All right. Or we don't want what we're saying to be a bit confusing to our readers. All right. Because we haven't, strengthened the connection between our ideas, or the connection between our ideas is, unclear in the minds of our readers. So our book gives us a few strategies for achieving paragraph coherence. All right. And one of those is repetition, not to be confused with redundancy, like repeating the same idea. But this one, repetition, it just means, repeating keywords and phrases to, help your paragraphs flow. And then it just reinforces like the connection that you're making between your ideas. All right. Not that long ago, blogs were one of those annoying buzzwords that you could safely get away with ignoring. All right. Now, this is what I would see. This is what I see a lot in paragraphs. All right. Instead of saying the word blog, it works as a noun and a verb. All right. I often see it works as both a noun and a verb, and it is short for weblog. All right. So the sentence would just begin with it. All right. But a lot of times, and even on some of the papers I've returned, sometimes I have a strike through it, or I'll just ask, well, what do you mean here? What is it? All right. And when I ask that question, or when I say like be more specific, it's just getting you to, use this repetition to make your paragraphs flow a bit smoother. So if I have like what is it, or what is this, it's really just pushing you to, use repetition, to make it flow. All right. Blogs can be about anything: politics, sex, baseball, haiku, car repair. There are blogs about blogs. All right. So it's just repeating, the same idea, or, the same phrase, and, just to get your paragraphs flowing. Also, okay, you can use synonyms, right? Different words that mean the same thing. All right. And for me, synonyms tend to be more effective, because that way you aren't using the same words all the time. Predictably, the love of cinema has waned. People still like going to the movies, and some people still care about and expect something special necessary from a film. And wonderful films are still being made, but one hardly finds anymore, at least among the young, the distinctive cinephilic love of movies. So we got movies, cinema, film. All right. So, this writer is using synonyms, to help their paragraphs flow a little bit smoother, or to enhance the coherence of their paragraph. So if on your first draft, as a comment, I wrote, practice strategies for paragraph coherence. One of them you could use is repetition. All right. And again, it's not, repeating the same idea. It's just using some of the same words or synonyms, to help your paragraphs flow smoothly. Another strategy we can use is parallel structure. Okay. Parallel structure, it just means that you're using the same structure throughout an essay. I'll show you a couple examples of this. One, I'll show you from the book here. All right. Similar items in the same grammatical structure. All right. Man, this goes a long way in helping your paragraphs flow. All right. The disease was bubonic plague, present in two forms. One that infected the bloodstream, causing the buboes and internal bleeding, was spread by contact. Okay. Pneumonic type that infected the lungs and was spread by. All right. So lethal was the disease. All right. So it's, just using the same grammatical structure, but just to flip back, to these slides. Okay. Here's a shorter version of parallelism or parallel structure. During the summer, children typically enjoy playing outside, eating ice cream, and riding their bikes. Sometimes I'll see during the summer, children typically enjoy playing outside, eating ice cream, and this would be incorrect if it was structured in this way. And to ride their bikes. So whatever structure you're using in a paragraph, all right, make sure you're being consistent with that. All right. So that's what parallel structure is. It's using the same grammatical form, throughout the paragraph. And it's typically mostly used for your verbs, all right, in a paragraph. So, and then this is kind of off topic, but it still applies. Make sure you're using the same like verb tense consistently throughout your essay. Like if you're discussing things in the past tense, make sure you keep that consistent throughout your essay. All right. And it's the same if you're discussing, the present tense, make sure you're consistent with that throughout your essay as well. All right. So repeating key ideas, parallelism or using parallel structure, great ways for achieving coherence. And then this is one of the most effective ways of enhancing coherence in your paragraphs, transitions. All right. And even on some of the essays, I've, added transitions on to some aspects, where it would fit or where they would fit. But transitions are, they're great at, helping you go from idea to idea. And, they do just what the name implies. They help you transition from this point to that point, or sentence to sentence, or even paragraph to paragraph. All right. And transitions, I just say with this, right? I'm always, happy when students start using transitions, but I just say make sure that you're using the right tool for the job. All right? Because there's a lot of transitions that you have to choose from. All right. So make sure you're using the transition that speaks to the relationship between those ideas. Meaning, like if it's a relationship of cause and effect, you want to use some of these transitions, comparison, addition, whatever. All right. I would just say, I'm just saying, like, if you are using transitions, which I do encourage you to do, make sure you're using the right one, for that relationship. And sometimes students will just get a transition that they like and just keep using it. Or get a transition, use a transition because they know they have to use one, but the transition that they use sometimes doesn't really doesn't really fit, with what they're what they're discussing. All right. And Yolanda, the third of the four girls, became a school teacher, but not on purpose. 4 years after graduate school. Okay. A transition that shows the passage of time. Okay. She wrote down poet under profession in questionnaires and income tax forms. And later, again, another transition, just showing the passage of time. So these transitions are fairly consistent, right? Just marking the passage of time. But I think, that would be extremely helpful, for you all. All right. And even to start a new paragraph, maybe you begin like this, once I moved out of my parents' house, and then you go into your next point. All right. Or, once I started college, or after I finished high school, and then you can go, with that paragraph. All right. But, transitions are really your one of your best strategies in, connecting your ideas, or like I'm saying, making your paragraphs flow, a lot more smoothly. All right. So practice. I think that's the great thing about us in writing these multi-draft essays, and even, you know, to a lesser extent, your reading questions and some of the other, you know, writing assignments that we'll do, you know, these are great spaces for practice. So, you know, use your reading questions, or, you know, use your drafts to try new things, or to add to your skill set as writers. Okay. And I think that's what, you know, one of our goals as writers, or really as students and as scholars should be, you know, to continually build our skill set. Okay. So, you know, if you struggle with, you know, unity on that first draft, or if you struggle with, you know, coherence on that first draft, try to incorporate some of these strategies. All right. Just how when we talked about, you know, during our reading questions, and I just started looking at, you know, a new batch, I'm seeing, you know, some of the students starting to put some of the material that we discuss into practice. So, you know, when we learn a new skill, right, the next step is to practice it. Okay. And just know that, you know, it may feel awkward, or it may feel, you know, new, right? Your first time, but, you know, keep practicing, keep practicing. So repetition, parallel structure, transitions, great ways, you know, to enhance the coherence of your essay. And if we go back to our slides here, right, these are just, this is actually a conjunction instead of a transition, but all right, but we can easily fix that. All right, but would work there, but I just, since we are talking about transitions, I want to add a transition here. All right, so here is just a list of transitions. All right, or here's the relationship that you want to show, like addition, meaning like also. All right, comparison, contrast, examples, cause and effect, and so on and so forth. And I have a list of them here because, and the same thing, our book has a list as well. I just don't want us to, you know, find a transition we like and, you know, to keep using that one over and over again. So try to switch it up. Okay, try to diversify, you know, when you're, you know, when you're writing. Okay, and here's just, you know, an example. This semester I am taking composition, math, and psychology. I have a job. I'm very busy. All right. This semester I am taking composition, math, and psychology in addition to my classes. So we've added a transitional phrase here. In addition to my classes, I have a job. As a result, I am very busy. So it's just these little things. And in the past, you know, some of my students have called it like word glue. All right, because it really just, you know, glues your ideas together. All right. So transitions are a great way, all right, to enhance, you know, coherence. All right, and here's just another example. This is a paragraph that lacks coherence. College can be difficult for first year students. Some struggle to adjust. The classes are harder and longer. Choosing a major is confusing. Students have to pay for their own books. Students have to pay for room and board. It can be very expensive. All of this should be taken into consideration before going to school. It's a lot of information there. Okay. And right now it's unclear how, you know, all of this connects. And then just, you know, if we give it the ear test, you know, some of this just hits your ear as, you know, being short and like choppy. But, you know, if we employ some of the strategies we've been talking about, college can be difficult for first year students, and many of them struggle to adjust to a new environment and new responsibilities. So sometimes coherence can come from just filling in the gaps or filling in the blanks for your reading. College can be difficult for first year students. So now we're telling them why. Okay. It can be difficult to adjust to a new environment and new responsibilities. In college, classes are harder and longer. Additionally, okay, here's a transition here. Choosing a major can get confusing, and then we just added more, all right, to help it flow a little bit better due to all of the interesting classes. Okay, another transition. Here's a transitional phrase, and then another transition here. All right, so transitions, right? Parallel structure, repetition. These are strategies to help our paragraphs flow. okay, flow smoother, and their strategies to strengthen the connection between our ideas. Okay. So we don't have, our reader asking us, well, I don't see how these ideas connect. Or what did you mean here? Or, what did you mean by this? Or what did you mean by it? All right. Now, go a little bit further. Start a new paragraph. It's what I was just saying. Especially if you're a writer who on your last draft, I put, practice paragraphing strategies. And then maybe I put specifically, break up your long paragraphs. Okay. So imagine, like I said, imagine being in that conversation with a person that doesn't allow you to get a word in. Okay. That's how these giant page length paragraphs are sometimes. Okay. So our book, new paragraph, new idea. Okay. Or like I was saying before, maybe you're discussing something, but it takes you longer than a paragraph, or you notice that a paragraph is going on extremely long. Break it up. Okay, that's fine. Same thing. Okay, these last 2 points kind of go together. Okay, emphasize a new idea, or when you just want to give your reader a break, okay, let them pause. All right, and then go back into your new paragraph. Right. If you're discussing, having an illness, okay, and you discuss the process of being admitted to the hospital, right? Some of the treatments, aftercare, right? All of that, could be in separate paragraphs, okay? And maybe there's an emotional response that you or your family had, that can be in a different paragraph. So don't jam all that in the same paragraph, or don't um don't undervalue your experiences, all right, by underdeveloping them. Okay, I'm just going to skip over conclusions. All right, and then our last, or introductions and conclusions. Our last point, unity, coherence, and then there's development. Okay, and development just means, have I told my reader everything they need to know? Think about your experiences, right? Have I shared everything that I need to share in order for them to fully understand the depth of this experience? Meaning, have I described this in enough detail? That's how we're going to look at it, as when we do our personal narratives. Have I used enough detail, to where my reader can understand, or can, better yet, have I used enough detail so my reader can see? Right? Because again, we have to use our words to paint our pictures. Can they see what I was just discussing? Can I have I shared my feelings adequately enough? All right. So when you're thinking about developing a paragraph, start from there. What does my reader need to know? All right. What details can I provide to help them, see what I saw or experience what I experienced? Okay, so that's what we mean by paragraph development. And our book, it is kind of, we kind of went in reverse here, where these are strategies for developing paragraphs. And again, for us, really just description and narration. Some of these other patterns of development will become more applicable when we do our next essay. But for this one, if we just focus on description and narrating, all right, I think we'll be fine. And now, for us, okay? And like I was saying before when we started this conversation, nobody's starting from scratch, okay? Nobody's starting their essay from scratch. And really, if you have 2 pages, you're just gonna have 2 additional pages. You're not starting an entirely new essay. So either, you can add 2 pages to your essay, or you can look at what you already have and ask yourself, okay, one, where can I add more detail? And two, what is there about my experience that I did not include in this essay or in this first draft? Meaning, what can I add to give my reader more insight into this experience? Okay. Another thing that we can add to our essay, okay, and this is, also a requirement for this essay, so make sure this is in your next draft. All right, of course you're supposed to discuss, this experience you went through, but also don't forget to include some discussion about what you learned from that experience. All right, so that could be, the second part, or what you add, to this new draft of your essay. What did you learn from that thing you went through? All right, and then if you need to go further, how are you applying what you learned? All right, meaning, if you talked about, some hard times you experienced in school, how's that different now that you're a college student? What do you plan to do differently so that can play out? If it's about, this thing that you went through with your health, right? What did you learn from that? Okay, it could be, just to appreciate each day, right? Could be, you learn just to take better care of yourself, or to put more of a value, on your health. All right. So, think about how you're going to add on to what you already have. Now, the flip side of this is, okay, revision also involves, okay, this is the thing students always fight me on, but I always say it anyway. Think about what can be cut from your essay, right? And sometimes the answer is nothing, meaning like you need everything in your essay, or sometimes you have unnecessary detail. When you're thinking about what details to include in an essay, think about what's relevant, to the big picture, right? Or, like I was saying, like I say all the time, sometimes a tree is just a tree. Okay. So really, think about that as you're putting, draft number 2 together. All right. So I said all of that to say, you know, don't think about paragraphs in terms of like, okay, I need 3 sentences, all right, I need 5 sentences. Think about unity, think about coherence, think about development. All right. And I think if you lead with those characteristics, you'll be fine. You know, can a paragraph be too long? Of course. Can a paragraph be too short? Yes. But I think, start thinking in terms of like characteristics, and usually the rest kind of works itself out. So if you're a student, who writes in really long paragraphs, your job is to think about when you're going to break it down. If you're a student that writes in really short paragraphs, though, think about where you can add more development. All right. Think about where you can add more development. So you're going back over your paper, right? And in this week's module, okay, I don't even know if this is week 6, but that's what we're calling it. All right. There's some more material about proofreading. There's some good stuff about revision in these slides. So I noticed that some people have already uploaded their essay, and that's fine. But if you want to continue to go over it and just upload a new draft Wednesday, that's cool as well. But look over this material, and just I'll go over some revision strategies in more detail when you're working on your next draft. But for this draft, you want to revise in stages, or you want to look at your paper in stages. First, you want to look at it as a whole. And I just encourage you, before you start, typing material on your essay, before you start revising it, just read it from beginning to end. And when you're reading it, try your best to read it as part of your audience. Don't read it as the author. All right. Try to put yourself in your audience's shoes. Okay. And then ask yourself, will a person who doesn't know me understand this? All right. Or do I need to add more detail? Okay. And then once you looked at it as a whole, now look at it from a paragraphing perspective. Okay. Are my paragraphs unified, coherent, and developed? Or, do I need some revision to my paragraph? And then look at it on a sentence level. Okay. Where are my run-ons? Where are my comma splits? Where are my fragments? And then I think above those things, or in addition to those, where are my instances of awkward sentence construction? All right. Meaning like, the idea is here, but, maybe I can say this a bit differently. All right. And a great way to catch that is to read your paper out loud. All right. Some things, once you read them back to yourself out loud, you'll say, like, man, that doesn't really make sense the way I said that or the way I wrote that. All right. Or, you can have someone else read it. I will certainly be reading your papers because, you're going to be submitting them to me and I will be giving you feedback. But, have someone else read it. Okay. Someone whose opinion you trust. And then there's always NetTutor. Okay. And NetTutor is here. And mine, when I click open NetTutor, it'll probably look different because I'm already signed in. There's a page before this one where you have to sign in, and you sign in, using your OCC email, your OCC account. The same way you log into your student account, you can just log in, and then you want to go down here. And then you got options, right? You can get in here and just wait to meet with the tutor. You can upload a paper and leave it. Now here, like I said, it may take up to 48 hours. So if you want to submit a paper, just anticipate, most of the time it's 24 hours, but it can take up to 48 hours to get your paper back. And I imagine it will be longer since, we're remote. And I'm assuming that more people are using NetTutor. But don't sleep on NetTutor if you need a second reader, or some of your papers I recommended, that you use a tutor. All right. Or if you want to just, get with a live tutor, you can just click on the ASC link and, follow the prompts. You can either call or email. Actually, email would be more effective to see one of those tutors. Okay. So have an additional set of eyes looking at your paper. And I think that's also especially helpful to you all because you've been living with your paper for the last couple of weeks, and I know you've maybe been reading it and rereading it. Sometimes you just we get fatigued. That's a human thing. All right, so it's always beneficial for you to have someone else looking at your paper, someone aside from your instructor. All right, so NetTutor, the ASC is there, or like I said, if there's someone who you trust, have them look at it. Okay. And then there's one final thing that I want you all to look at. Okay. We'll meet again briefly on Wednesday, and I can go back over some of this stuff. Actually, I do want to go back over some of this proofreading and revision material. But I moved, when you upload your essay, you can just click on this instructor chosen essay draft number 2. And you can use this assignment folder to submit, but also attached to this assignment. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. There's a self-assessment. Okay. And you can just type right on here. Okay. It's fine if, the stuff moves around a little bit when you type it. But one of the things I want you all to get in the habit of is just having a strong connection to your paper, or knowing your paper. So I returned your drafts to your assignment folders with my feedback on there, but understand that the revision process is more than just fixing stuff. Just fixing stuff that your teacher said, okay, you need something here, you need more detail there. It's more than that, because at the end of the day, you're in charge of your paper. You say what gets added, you say what gets taken out. All right, so you're in control of that process. So when you submit your draft, or when you're going through your revision process, list at least 3 changes you made to your paper from draft number 1 to draft number 2. Maybe you added more detail, right? Maybe you took out some unnecessary material. Maybe you included more descriptive language. That's up to you. All right, so at least 3 changes that you made in your paper from draft number 1 to draft number 2. All right. And then, this one's going to be different for everybody. How long did you spend working on draft number 2? Okay. Was it a few days? Was it a couple hours? All right. Did you get started Wednesday morning? You know, be honest, because it's going to help you with your writing process. And then, do you think you dedicated enough time to your essay? Now, don't put in here like what you think a teacher wants to hear. Like, yeah, you know, I worked on my paper for 4 days for 2 hours at a time. You know, be honest, because this is going to help you assess your own writing process. So, you know, if you waited till Wednesday to get started, you know, maybe things didn't work out for you. So, you know, do you think you dedicated enough time? The answer would be no. Or, you know, if you did think you dedicated enough, that would be yes. What aspect of writing this essay did you struggle with the most? When you're putting your draft together, you know, what did you struggle with the most? Okay. And again, that's going to differ from person to person. And then finally, what are you going to do on your next draft? From draft number 2 to draft number 3. What are you going to do to improve your next draft? And that could be spend more time. That could be use a tutor. That could also be, you know, doing some of those Norton Wright exercises to, you know, help you eliminate comma splice or eliminate fragments. All right. So think about that. And then this is just a checklist. And there's a way to fill it to check these boxes, or you can just put yes or no. That's fine. All right. I forgot how to check the boxes. Or, you know, if you want to old school it and you have a printer, you can print this out, check them off, scan your document, and throw it back in the assignment folder. But that's just a lot of work. Okay. So answer these questions as honestly as possible. Okay. And then if if there's some questions that you can't check, or you answer no to, that just lets you know what you have to work on, or that lets both of us know what you have to work on for your next draft. All right. And that self-assessment checklist is it's in your assignment folder. Let me go back in the student view real quick.
I have a question concerning the draft, the second part of the draft.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I already submitted it, like I did like the self-assessment and everything.
Hmm?
Did you want us to like I don't know, like wait before like turning it in, I guess, or
No, that's up to you. If you have some additional changes you want to make, you know, in light of the material we just covered today, you can. But if it's already in there and you want to roll what you have, that's cool too.
okay.
Yeah. So whatever is going to happen, just make sure it happens by Wednesday. But if you've already submitted a draft, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. So yeah, my people, just make sure you submit your draft and the self-assessment, and you can put them both in the same folder. All right, just click that, and then here's the self-assessment. Okay. And then finally, there's some additional reading questions in here. All right. And if you didn't notice, you know, we're more than halfway through our book, right? Hopefully we're enjoying it. I know I am. This is I don't know how many books we've done for this class. A lot, but this is one of the ones I've been enjoying the most. All right. So that's all I got today, my good people. Questions for me before we dismiss for today?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Norwood.
Yes, Sparkle's iPhone.
Well, the good thing is I had to remake a Quinsitive account, but it's fully with the school email, so I just
Okay.
got done with that. I know that's late, and I got to catch up on some things with that.
Now,
But my question is, so for the 2 papers we have, we're just going to continue on to 2 more papers and then
yes.
submit it?
So if your rough draft was 2 pages, then you're going to make your next draft 4 pages. So you're going to add on to what you already have. Nobody's starting a new paper though.
Okay, that's all I was concerned about.
Yep. And then just to reiterate, or just to piggyback on something you said, Sparkle, if anybody fell behind in the inquisitive assignments, make sure you get yourself caught up. I believe you can go in and still do them. All right. But if you cannot, let me know and I'll change the dates, because it's important for me that you guys have this practice, on some of these strategies. All right. So if you fell behind in the inquisitive assignments, get yourself caught up. All right. Any other questions?